Hello everyone, welcome back to another video. My name is Matthew and today we're back with another Godzilla comparison, coming at you with three different figures this time. I know, very different because normally I'm comparing two, but hey, there's three. So this year, Godzilla 2014 turned 11 years old, which, time flies by insanely fast, doesn't it? Not really. Those 11 years were actually quite dragged out for what they were, every year being different than the last. But this year is pretty much going to be taking a look at three different figures of the 2014 Godzilla from different generations of Godzilla figure lines and three different companies. From left to right, we have the Playmates City Destruction Godzilla 2014 with the tank as part of the MonsterVerse brand of license Playmates is doing. The NECA Godzilla 2014 figure, the 12-inch long version, not the 24-inch long version. That's a different figure entirely. And what will later kickstart off the NECA line. And of course, the most recent release of the bunch, the HIYA Toys Godzilla 2014 Exquisite Basic version. Until they release the Stylus series or the Spitfire version, this is going to be our three-way Godzilla 2014 comparison with all six action figures that I currently have. If you're unfamiliar with this, what we're going to be doing is we're going to go into different categories and comparing them in, different ways, like accessories, sculpt and paint articulation, etc. Also, I think it is worth mentioning that there are other 6-inch 2014 figures out there, like the Bandai America one and the SH Monster Arts. So I'm going to give those a shout out, but I don't actually own either of them. And at the moment, I don't really desire to because I already have these three. And why I have multiple versions of the same exact version of Godzilla? Unless it's like an atomic version, then I guess I have a place for it, which I do eventually plan to pick up the highest Spitfire. But right now, these are the three I have. These are the three we're working with. So I feel like enough talking about just the three figures. Let's actually get onto the comparison within itself. Actually, let me go ahead and be a bit of a hypocrite for just a sec and actually talk about the NECA Godzilla 2014 because that is going to be the veteran figure of the three we have here, being the oldest, and if I remember correctly, the very first action figure of Godzilla 2014 because it does predate the Monster Arts version. This is my original release version. I do have the reissue variant, but I'm not including it for this one because I want to take a look at the purest original form of Godzilla 2014 that I have in my collection. So do keep in mind that there is going to be maybe a bit of scuffs, a bit of like wear downs when it comes to the joint stability and such. So it is going to be a used copy, but it's still going to be a very serviceable copy. Nothing's broken, nothing's really missing. So it's still, technically speaking, a complete figure. So let's get on with it. First things first is I want to talk about accessories, which the accessories on all figures, let's start going like individual. The NECA version, we might as well just knock this one out of the way and say the NECA comes with nothing. In its original release, in several reissues over the years, in different paint schemes and different box designs, it never came with anything, which I do think is a bit of a downer because I feel like NECA could have thrown in maybe a beam effect because there is a NECA beam effect that does go with this 2014 figure very well, and that's the 2019 V2 beam effect, which in my personal opinion looks near picture perfect. What I feel like they could have done with one of their future reissues was take that beam effect, repainted it to look more like the 2014 beam and repackaged it. That would look really nice. But instead, we get this, which is basically just nothing. It is worth noting that the tail does come disattached out of the box, which at the time, I know in past reviews, I've said that was technically an accessory, but it's not. It's just assembly required to complete the whole figure, so no. Assembly required is different from actual accessory usage. An accessory is supposed to alter the appearance of the figure at your own expense or at your own will. It is in addition to, not something you're supposed to put together, and that's the figure. That's different. Which leads us to Playmates and HIYA, the more recent figures. Now, the Playmates had this feature where they included battle damage, and that was actually part of the whole gimmick, which this is actually going to be the side of Goji. This is going to be right here, which is just basically your average piece of flexible rubber. Nothing too over the top. We have some actually pretty well detailed, like squared off scales here. Maybe not so much accurate, but that'll be talked about later in the video. Which essentially you just put this on, smooth it out a little bit, and it looks not fine. I do have a bit of an issue with mine where like this part does kind of protrude outward a little bit, and it does expose a bit of the battle damage, which by the way, for the battle damage itself, glossy red for days. I will say it does look a little weaker compared to the other battle damages that Playmates has done in years past, but it's nothing like too badly. But as far as the actual like idea of the battle damage, I know that some people disagree with me saying that it's not an accessory, but the whole point of the battle damage is to alter the physical appearance and is like an option if you want to keep it on or off. That is literally what an accessory is. Much like a beam effect, it's meant to be like a different display of Godzilla. If you want firing a beam, or if you don't, if it comes with a beam, it gives you the option, much like the battle damage within itself. Yes, it's a gimmick, but it also comes across as an accessory because it's also individually packaged, so it basically fits the idea of an accessory. What it also comes with is a little tank, which it's very rare for Godzilla figures to actually come with tanks, so at least in the modern era. So this is actually a very nice welcome inclusion. The top of it spins, not so much a full 360, I don't think. Oh no, it does. Okay, I forgot. But yeah, top little part, little cannon, and then we have the little treads with the wheels. It actually looks very well detailed, not so much like painted, but you can make Godzilla grab it. I would say the top fingers go on the top here, and the thumb kind of like grasps onto the tank. It does kind of get a little bit of getting used to. I don't do this on a regular basis, so okay, so there we go. So yeah, Godzilla can grab a hold of the tank and have very mixed results as far as actually holding on to it. But still, bottom line is he comes with a piece of battle damage and a little tank. Pretty damn sweet. What about the HIYA? Well, being the original release HIYA, not the beam effect version of HIYA, this is not going to come with any sort of effect, but is actually going to come with alternate clenched fists. Now these look awesome. They have their own unique sculpted features and very nice paint jobs, as you can see here. Although the paint is a little mismatched on some parts because like the pinky kind of got a little bit more paint than the rest of the hand did. But given the fact that they are like little tiny fists, I can kind of forgive that. So basically, to put them on, you basically just take the ball peg, go to the corresponding hand, and you literally just shove it in there. Now, for the life of me, I literally cannot get this thing on. Ah, yikes. Yeah, no, this is not going to work with my current setup right now. Effectively, I would use a blow dryer, but I don't actually have one on hand, and I'm not buying a blow dryer literally just to put some action figure joints on, which like I rarely use anyway. And not to mention, Godzilla 2014 never really like absolutely clenched his fist and punched it, so you could say like he's grabbing something like the Muto, which there is a Muto out there. I personally think that while these are a cool idea, I would have liked a severed Muto head, like what MonsterVerse did with their 2014 Spitfire. That would have been awesome. But alas, that is what the HIYA comes with. And yeah, sorry I can't really show it on camera because I don't want to hurt myself, because I actually tried to do it off camera and like I had like a million different like dents in my fingers. It's really painful. But I've gotten used to it over the years, which it might be a bad thing. Anyway, so realistically, the point for accessory is kind of up for debate, but I'm personally going to have to give it to the Playmates. Why Playmates? Because while the alternate fists are cool, I feel like there's more display opportunity with things like a tank and literally a battle damage feature. That's actually a lot more cooler than just clenched fists. Not to say Playmates did an awful job with these, they did really well. But literal tanks and weaponry is surprisingly scarce for Godzilla figures themselves. Normally they come with things like the mechs, like the Mecha Godzillas and such, but never really Godzilla figures themselves, which I think this is actually the first time a Godzilla figure that I own came with a tank. Interesting. So realistically, I'm going to have to personally give the accessory point to Playmates, even though technically speaking, they both come with the individual accessories the same amount. 2 splayed fists versus 1 tank and 1 battle damage piece. So there you go. Next up, we can actually get to the overall looks of both figures. So first up, we're just going to talk about the Playmates. We're not going to go in depth because I've already taken a lot of looks at these figures. So let's actually kind of like raise the camera a bit up just to get an overall better view. So effectively, this is meant for the kids market, a very cheapened out version of Godzilla made from a multitude of different plastics. The head here uses a very rubbery soft plastic with different color schemes like orange for the eyes themselves, with a little black people, pretty basically done teeth that are pretty aligned, more so than they should be, with a little tongue that is painted pink, and so detail for the mouth itself. The detail for the actual like soft plastic bits, that's actually where the detail really shines, and that's where I really like it. But what's the main selling point personally, at least for like the color scheme is concerned, because the figure is made from like a dark blue navy plastic, is going to be the green. Well, apparently I'm colorblind. The orange that's used throughout the figure. Which, if you're wondering why it's orange, the Godzilla 2014 marketing really put a big emphasis on orange, like mainly oranges and reds, but mostly orange. And so this is like Playmates' way of paying homage to that color scheme by illuminating his dorsal plates and illuminating the front of it to look almost like he's in a burning city. Personally, for me, I probably would have just preferred my Godzilla being more like standardized without the orange. But in a collection that's mostly going to be comprised of like dark charcoal grays, blacks, and blues, I would actually say that orange is a very welcome addition, so I'm not overly mad. For the actual like main body, the detail's still going to be like a little bit more softened because of the harder plastic, but we go back to the more compact detail with arms, which are actually big and meaty, with the softer plastic that's used. Again, more of the orange being shown at the front and the legs themselves. A little bit of highlights here on the shoulders, right here and here. It's more of the harder plastic for the front. Kind of like this main body area is going to be made of the harder plastic, while everything else is going to be made of the more softer plastic, including the dorsal plates. And I guess as well as like the legs too are made of a hard plastic. With the feet, I think they're also made of a hard plastic. I could be wrong. I don't know. It's hard to really like tell what these things. And yeah, I think this is just whatever. Anyway, so yeah, feet are also big and chunky as they should be. Although I don't think the legs were this big and thick in the film. Like I feel like proportionally the Playmates definitely has the weakest point of them all, but the tail is going to be made of the soft plastic and does kind of like rejuvenate the detail here a bit. Although if I did have like one criticism, it's that I'm not really a fan of the way that the tail is positioned here, and it's just it curls straight up like this. And I do like the fact that they did paint like the first few segments, but after that, it doesn't really do much. In fact, you can kind of start to see that throughout the figure, there is like some very ugly mold lines. Like, yeah, there's just some parts where it's obviously like imperfected. I get it. It's a kid's toy made in the modern day. And it's very flexible too. I don't really mind soft plastic used on figures, although do keep in mind that there is going to be a major detail difference when it comes to it. So the 2014 Playmates, it's obviously not winning. I think that they did what they could with their price point, but it's just not enough to really win any points here. Which leaves us with these two. So let's go over the NECA first. The NECA was directly based on the 2014 model used in the film and is actually the, I think, how many prototypes did they show Legendary and Toho? Oh no, they showed multiple prototypes before they settled on this design, which in my personal opinion was the best version of that specific version of Godzilla. Anyway, so being directly based on the CG model, they had a lot to work with. So essentially, as far as accuracy goes, this would technically automatically make it the most accurate, yes, even more so than HIYA, but we'll talk about HIYA in just a moment, that you can pretty much get to a 2014 6-inch scale Godzilla. For the head, again, because it's used and been worn down over the years, it does have a bit of scuffs across the paint, but it actually still retains a very nice sculpt with some very nice details, kind of like going to the sides here and the very pronounced gills and the neck segment. The teeth paints, again, they've been chipped, seen better days, but the magenta inside the mouth still holds up pretty nicely with some nice detail at the top and bottom of the mouth, as you can see there. And you get a nice blue wash throughout the entirety of the figure. Now, I have seen, and yes, I do mean seen, other 2014 Godzillas with different paint schemes, even in like the first wave of them. As for like what version I got a very blue one. I know on camera right now it doesn't look that way, but you can actually go back to my older catalog of videos when I was using a different phone that detected different light anomalies in different lighting situations. And especially in one particular video, I think it was like the Godzilla versus Game Godzilla like clip sneak peek thing I uploaded in 2016. This thing was like incredibly blue, like madly blue. So obviously this thing has got some blueness to it, but overall the detail here just is very nice for a $20 figure. We have a lot more of the bumps and ridges going across. The claws not so much painted, but they do have a nice gloss, shiny effect added to them. The actual torso has a very like dark brown, kind of like sandy color. The reissue had a lot more of it, but this is the reissue, the original version we're talking about here. A little bit more of a gloss, which by the way, because this was earlier NECA, they did have like a very shiny look. I personally liked it, probably just because of my nostalgia bias. Very well detailed feet. I got a bit of like gunk in mine over the years, so again, you're gonna have to forgive that. But we do have like a bit of a brown finish when it comes to like things like the nails, and you see a little bit around the foot. Again, not too bad. What I also want to talk about are the dorsal plates, which, yeah, the dorsal plates could have been done a little bit better because they are going to be made of like a flexible rubber and really nothing else. They do look a little bit cheap, even in comparison to other figures NECA made in 2014. And I do think that, again, they could have done a little bit better. Even the 94, which was released a little while later, had more better detailed dorsal plates than this. Although I guess, then again, the Heisei Godzilla had a lot more uniform of dorsal plates compared to the 2014 design, so there is that, but still. So yeah, but they did get the shape down to pretty much perfection. Like, this is exactly how I'd imagine it. And of course the tail, it's very long, very girthy. It does come packaged separately right here, but you do get a few segments of which have some really nice blue paint, and underneath has some very nice like brown texture detail. Again, I've got a bit of like gunk floating around. Please forgive that. And of course going down here to the very tip of the tail, which is actually still intact, which I'm very surprised about. So overall, as far as like the actual quality of it goes, for 2014, this thing could have been a whole lot worse. I do like what we have here. It is also just worth noting that because this is an older figure, I think like if NECA ever did revisit the Godzilla line, they'd absolutely try and remaster this thing from the ground up and not just spew out the same mold again. But who knows? At this point, it's just merely a fantasy. And I do like what NECA did here. It's very nostalgic, but removing nostalgia bias aside, I think this is probably the most movie-accurate Godzilla we have here. But the one that we do also have to take a look at is HIYA. Now, here's what I meant by HIYA being less so accurate than the NECA, even though it's made from a more modern technology standpoint. See, that was based on the 2014 model as it was prior to KOTM, prior to Monarch Legacy Monsters, prior to vs. Kong, the New Empire, so on and so forth. This is definitely a different, updated, or at least in proportion to the 2014 model. What I mean by that is, take a look at things like the legs. We'll talk about it individually. Actually, let's save that for the end. So for the head, we have a very nicely detailed squared off head, which I have to say, of the three, this is definitely the best detailed. We can see a lot of the nice little intricate details here. The eyes are actually like a blue, which is surprisingly because this is not when he does the atomic breath. Moving inside the mouth, we actually have a nice pink in there, very nice sculpted details, and pretty decently painted teeth. That actually does look very nice. Underneath the jaw looks nice as well, and of course you got the neck segments with the highlighted gills, which are going to be painted like a sandy type color as well. The sculpted details here for the neck look very nice, as well as the free floating pieces. They look nice too with the rubberized fins. And nice little details here as well. The arms here, they actually do have a bit of a blue hue. Not as much as the NECA does, but it is a very close blue hue. This almost just seems like a all-around improved NECA mold, which if I had to guess, that's probably what NECA would have done had they still had the license. But we also have a lot more of a sandy color on the inside of the arm here, which also I would like to make mention that mine does have a bit of a sculpting issue with its thumb here. Also, there is fur here because I do have cats, so they do kind of get at the collection every now and then. So for the actual stomach, it looks very thickened with all the detail here. A little bit of a mold line, but I'm not going to really punish the neck HIYA for that. But we do have, again, a lot of the nice intricate little details. There's so much detail here to be found. I'm very surprised how well it's actually done. If I had to compare it to video quality wise, I would say that would be 360p. That'd be 720. This is 4K. As far as the actual quality is concerned, and maybe even more. And unlike the NECA, this actually has the detail down to a science, which does look very nice. It is also pretty damn rubbery, although this one's actually pretty pointy. Interesting difference. And also has some different gradations of the paint in there as well. For the very big thighs, a lot of the nice intricate details here as well are found. And I like the color clash between the sandy type color and the darker charcoal. And of course the dustiness of the 2014 Godzilla. This almost looks like someone just ran him through the sand at the beach. I know I remember I once brought my NECA 2014 to the beach. I wonder if I can actually still find that photo. I don't know, it's probably somewhere in the archives. Anyway, so yeah, we have this very nicely detailed and painted knee. And when I was talking about the foot is that the foot here looks more similar to that of the KOTM foot than the 2014 foot, because the NECA 2014 actually has the right idea of clumping the legs together, the toes together. So this leads me to believe that this version of the HIYA Godzilla was more based on a updated, archived version of the 2014 model instead of what they actually used in 2014, because we have seen design changes from that to the original film, if that makes any sort of sense. But still, if that's not evident, then I don't know what is. And of course, here we have the very long and very whip-like tail, which has a lot of the nice sculpted ridges underneath. All the nice parts going down here. And I'd actually, at the last segment, actually kind of folds down at a right angle. That's interesting. I wonder why I had to include that. But it looks very nice, very cool. So for the HIYA, it's definitely going to be the most I would say, detailed and just overall the best executed. And that's why I'm personally going to give it the point. Let's actually put these Godzillas back in uniform scale. So if I had to personally give a third, second, first place, let's actually reiterate the accessories. So for third place for accessories would be the NECA because it comes with nothing. Very close second place would be the HIYA. First place would be the Playmates. So for that, I'm going to go ahead and say for the sculpt and paint. Third goes to Playmates pretty easily. Second goes really closely to the NECA because its sculpt is so damn close to what we see in the actual film. And you can definitely tell it's a lot more darkened. But the thing is, because it's an older figure, its quality is just not going to be as quite as there as a more modern technology advanced figure like the HIYA is, made of a more recent version of the model. So again, the HIYA wins. Next up, we're going to be taking a look at posability, the articulation. So let's start with the Playmates. For the jaw, we can go open and shut. Open, shut. Pretty basic. It's on a hinge. Although what's worth noting is that because of the way that the mouth is sculpted, if you try closing it, it has a very severe underbite, which I think is because of the way it's designed, because you can kind of see here, even though it does look okay with its mouth sculpted like this, the bottom jaw is significantly smaller than the upper jaw. So I feel like if they increased the size of just this piece alone and maybe made it more U-shaped like that, aligned, it would have looked a little bit better. So if you just do it like this, yeah, I mean, just look at that. So there's that worth pointing out. The Playmates can also do a 360 at the neck, which why they featured a neck joint on the 2014 Godzilla, but nothing from 2019, 2021, and 2024, no clue. Shoulder swivels, which we can go back and forth. So you can do that if you really want to. The legs here, there really is no need to kind of kick the shoulders up, so that far, that far. And for this leg, that far and this far. For the feet, we can do a 360 like that and 360 like that. Although do keep in mind, because this figure is in a pre-post position, you're not going to get a whole lot of poses out of this thing. And the tail, ball joint, and can swivel to a very limiting amount of degrees, especially because it's straight up. Now, here's my biggest gripe with the articulation on this thing. Let's look at the way it's cut. So you have the socket, well, the cup area where it spins, and then you have the ball peg, which attaches the whole thing. Pretty good. You see all that? Those little lines? That is the figure cutting into itself. Which means whoever designed this didn't really take into consideration that this side, especially because you can see all the rubbery plastic bits, are being shaved down by that seam line or whatever it's doing. Very poor design, in my opinion. And that's not the only part of the body that does that, by the way. See that? Let's zoom in. That is the figure scraping up against itself and only itself from just basic use. Yeah, I get it. It's a $10 kid's toy. Playmates should be excused. I'm actually going to say they're not excused because for the same price point, this is, to my knowledge, one of the only figures that actually no, it's been a little bit of a problem since Kong Skull Island, but that was a rushed figure. This one actually had time put into it, so I don't see why they couldn't just tighten up that. Now it's NECA's turn. Like I made mention, it is going to be a bit loosened because of how much things I've done with it over the years. Not trying to put that in any suggestive way, I'm just saying I've played with this thing a lot. go back to my catalog of Animated Godzilla show episodes. You'll see the amount of things I put this guy through. Anyways, for the face, sorry, we have a hinged jaw, which we can go open about that far, close up that far. Ball joint here at the head, which we can go up, down, facing it this way, left, right, and tilt. The neck here, slide up and down, twist side to side, go this way and that way. So you can use the two joints to get some pretty decent expressions. Shoulders can go out to the side, inwards, and they look pretty nice. So you're not going to get like a whole lot of like out to the side, but if you want to fake it, you can kind of like swivel it forward and then kind of like almost as if he's T-posing like that. So there's that worth noting. And also, again, like I may have mentioned, we go 360. For the elbows, we can bend in, straighten out, swivel, and go 360 with the wrist as well as ball joints. Now, I don't know if like the more modern reissue had the swivel hinge for the wrist. I'm willing to bet not, but it is a possibility. I don't know. The ab crunch here, you can actually kind of sink it like this and kind of get them to lean forward and kind of rear back. So you can kind of slide the figure joint like that. So if you want them really hunched, you can actually get that tapping. As well as you can get a little bit of like, oh man, I'm like sliding the tail all over the place. You can get like some side to side like that. And you can actually rotate from side to side as well. So there's that. Hips. Now, I remember when I first got the figure out of the package and I tried to rotate it, I was just like, what the hell? Because they did something weird. Usually when a figure has a leg joint, they plug it like right around here. That's not what the NECA did. NECA Godzilla did. Popping off the leg, because I can actually do that, they popped it more towards the like back half of the figure. So now it's actually at like a very weird angle. Now, at first, I didn't understand why NECA bothered to do this, but what I realized is it's a barbell peg. I can actually get the leg to sit like this and then readjust it like that. So it's not entirely seamless, but you can basically seal the gap virtually. So if you want the figure to like move like this, you have options. Not to mention, you can use the barbell peg to actually like slide in and out like that, forward and back. There's a lot of expressive nature where you can go up. You can even spread the legs out to the side like this, and there's like in-bridge sculpt here. A little smoothened out, but still very much nice. So the legs are very underrated in my opinion. For the knees, which we can go straighten out, forward, and go 360, like so. For the foot, pivot, and 360. You can primarily get more of a pivot this way than the other way, but c'est la vie. And for the tail, 1, 2, 3, 4 ball jointed segments for the tail, and from here to roughly about, trying to like pinpoint it, about here is entirely bendy wire. From here to here is just pure rubber, but funny enough, this rubber tail has not actually broken because there is a metal wire in there, and I don't know how much longer it's going to last because who knows how brittle that thing is now. But effectively, you can still get some pretty nice poses out of this thing, even in 2025, and hopefully 2026 and beyond. So lots of nice joints for the NECA Godzilla. Now, HIYA's turn. Let's move it up. Let's continue. The tongue moves on a hinge independently, so you can actually use the jaw, which is also on a hinge, to move it up and down. Although what's funny is that I actually have a QC issue with my hinge on my tongue. Out of the box too, you can actually kind of see it starting to pop off. When I actually go to pop it off, you can kind of see that the hinge in there, it's kind of damaged. So that's definitely a QC issue on HIYA's part. But for the actual neck system, it uses what I believe is a singular rod that connects both the head and neck together. And these neck segments purely exist just to hide it and to cover the gaps even further. So you do get a lot of nice like segmentation, and like in case you get a gap, guess what? You can use those to kind of like help seal it a little bit to varying amounts of degree, but it can be done. And you can also rotate a full 360 degrees just like that. Shoulder ball joints here, which has about the same level of range as the NECA does, which we can go down about that far. Let's see, go full 360 degrees. Let's see, whoa, okay, kicking over the accessories. Bicep swivel, damn it, popping off my wrist joint. A bit of like a sliding hinge joint, because you do have to kind of like slide the hinge at the elbow, but it is a singular jointed elbow unless you want to count the bicep. I wouldn't really recommend it anyway, because like you don't really get a whole lot of range. Can't really straighten out as much as I wanted to, but you can get a bit of a rotation. Ball joint here at the wrist, which is a little too loose for my liking. Ball joint here at the waist, which you can't really crunch all that much, but you can get a decent rotation and a lean. You can actually get a very nice spread here at the legs and a very nice rotation at the legs and go back and forth. So-so knee joints. I say so-so because while they can bend out pretty far, they can't really straighten out as much as I'd like it to, because I know it looks like they're really straightening out, but he's always going to be at like a very weird hunch, which 2014 did hunch, but I don't think he hunched that much. But you do get 1-2 hinge joints that can also swivel. Ball joint here at the foot. And a series of X amount of ball joints. I don't know, I'm too lazy to count them. That goes all the way about to the tip of the tail right there. So you can get pretty much any dynamic pose you want out of this guy. So as far as like who wins the edge in terms of articulation, let's bring them all back up. This is like the K-pop demon hunters of Godzilla. I still have yet to watch the movie. Could you believe that? Anyway, it's pretty much crystal clear that the HIYA definitely takes the articulation, but realistically, it's not that by much, because while it does feature a lot more posability than the NECA does, the range that I've freed up over the years allows me to achieve poses with the NECA does that I can pretty much get with the HIYA. The main reason why the HIYA does win this is because it has more articulation joints. Although there are things that the NECA can do, like bend out like this, that the HIYA simply cannot. Well, let's post that even further. So there is kind of like that advantage. Although, let's be honest, the real winner of this all is the Playmates. Just kidding, HIYA wins. Now, here's something I want to talk about. Size. Effectively, they're all about the same size, with even though it looks like the HIYA is standing a little bit taller than that of the NECA, they're actually proportionally very similar. The HIYA is a bit bulkier around like things like the limbs, but as far as the main body goes, the head size, etc., they're pretty much about equal. Playmates is definitely going to be the most bulky, but it doesn't really have the height advantage because even despite its head being posed at a bit of an angle, it effectively has the same 6-inch benchmark compared to the other two 2014s, so there's really not going to be a total winner there. What there is going to be a winner here is going to be in terms of price. The Playmates is going to be the most bang for your buck figure at $10 or $15 in some parts of the United States. The NECA retailed for about $20 to $25 during its heyday, which was like 5 years ago, And the HIYA toys comes in at about $51. So even though all figures are about, I would say, quote unquote, affordable, depending on what your stance of affordability is for different budgets and different price points at different years in time, I'm going to go ahead and say that the Playmates wins this because it is, again, the cheapest option of the three at MSRP. Funny because they still have yet to reissue the 2014 and the new MonsterVerse packaging. Come on, Playmates. Get to it. And at this point, because the NECA is, well, this will pretty much tap into availability, which this is going to be kind of hard for me to judge. Because again, this is October 2025. That's when I'm recording this. This is when the video is going live. The availability of these figures is kind of damned because HIYA has had American distributor after American distributor and was recently revealed that they're doing it themselves, even though it was also previously announced that NECA Toys would also be handling. I don't know. It's so complex. At least of the North American market. This guy was available for 6 years, very different runs as far as the quantity is concerned, but all remain the same at about $20 to $25 at different retailers like Toys R Us, Walmart, and Target, as well as different collectible stores that may jack up the price to like $30, but at that point, that's basically the sweet spot. But again, that was 2014 and 2020. This is 2025. So you're basically at the mercy of the aftermarket. The only place I can think of for MSRP, well, not even MSRP, because they did unfortunately increase the price, is a Canadian toy retailer, Toy Snowman, which actually did list this guy for I think like $69.99. My only guess is that they probably found like a bunch of like a box of NECA Godzilla 2014s that haven't been sold yet, so they said screw it, let's list it on the site, throw it on the aftermarket price, and call it a day. Which I think it's weird for having this guy still at $69.99. Like, come on, let's make that a little cheaper, please and thanks. But the Playmates variant did come to various different retailers, but it's not being sold as of when I'm recording this, because right now they're mainly focusing on other releases aside from the 2014 Godzilla line. Keep in mind, this is the only 2014 Godzilla figure that Playmates has produced, not the Mutos, not a standard version, just this version. So until Playmates reissues it, which I think might happen soon, who knows, this is the only way to get them. From 2022 to 2023, I believe, this is when the figure was released. I got mine in 2023, so pick your poison. Well, this guy is the newest one of the bunch and is still on various retailers. So I would say, in all honesty, I would say this guy right now is the most, well, the best opportunity to actually go and get, at least as far as the online market is concerned, because let's be honest, even though he's technically cheaper than him, if you don't like eBay, you're going to have more opportunity to get this guy than these two. So HIYA actually wins this point here. And finally, we're going to come right back to packaging, which I don't have any boxes to share with you. Actually, that's a lie. I do have one box, and that's going to be this guy's box. I may still have the 2014 box because I do have like a bag of like different boxes I have from the previous Godzillas before my recent move. Well, not recent, it was earlier this year, but still. I may still have it, but I'm not willing to fish it out just for the sake of this video because otherwise it's going right back into the dump. Anyways, for the NECA 2014, it came in a clamshell box. I'll probably throw some pictures up on screen if I remember to. And it also came in like a reissue, like poster box style packaging figure. As part of like NECA's more ultimate style lineup of like updated boxes. Instead of just following the basic 2014 style guide, I don't know, the one where there's just been reused all over the place, all over the map. This guy actually came in a newer open box style box that was like in its own unique style. And because of that, also had like different blues on it. It had a lot of different stuff on it, and it was just really visually, at least very good to the eyes. It wasn't like too overly complex. You can go back to my unboxing and look at it, but the one I do have on my person, absolutely, is the HIYA box, which I'm looking for an excuse to actually show it off again, because who knows if I'll probably throw this one out. It effectively was just like this. Again, a lot of fur on it. It's a very closed box with like different promo art of the figure. And effectively, that is what it looks like. However, I'm actually going to go ahead and give this point to the NECA one. Why the NECA? Because not only are we going to be factoring in both versions of the box, which is going to be the closed box, the more poster box and the clamshell box, I lost my train of thought. The poster box was undoubtedly one of the best boxes for an action figure in general, because it was not only closed box, but there's a fifth panel that you can open up to reveal the figure and see what it looked like. So when you actually went into retail, you could see the quality of the figure. So let's say there's a bit of like paint on the neck missing on one unit, maybe not on the other, you could actually see it. You could say the same thing about the Playmates, but with the open boxes comes with kids who don't know any better and would probably just start ripping off parts. Trust me, I've seen it happen a few times, even at retail. And for the HIYA, you basically have no way of knowing what your unit is going to look like until you finally open it. And it's often subject to sometimes, well, oh, we don't accept refunds or something like that. We don't accept returns. And at that point, you're at a loss. So in my personal opinion, the best one is going to be the NECA box. And that's basically it. The whole competition thing is over. So when we really go to tally up the points, we have a very awkward system here. Because let's re-review everything. The Playmates had the point in terms of accessories and price point. The NECA won the point in terms of boxes, and the HIYA won the point in terms of availability, sculpt and paint, and overall articulation. However, all three of them were equilibrium when it came to overall size, because let's be honest, they're all about, well, the same size. So that leaves us with the final point system of 1 point, 2 points, 3 points. I guess technically you could say 2, 3, and 4 when it comes to overall, like, tie, like giving them all a point for ties. That still means the HIYA is the winner, with Playmates in second, NECA in third. Weird to say that the Playmates did better than the NECA. I know, that sounds really weird, but take this from someone who literally loves NECA, because it's my childhood line. It's the thing that started the whole thing. And the amount of adventures I've been on with this thing, I took it to camps, I took it to events, over the years, still glad to have them. That said, I definitely think when it comes to a hyper-articulated 2014 Godzilla action figure, your best bet is undoubtedly the HIYA. Because not only is it a newer figure made with the more up-to-date technology, it's also just a lot more cleansed to the eyes, looks a lot less outdated than something like the NECA does. That hurts me to say. And isn't meant to be like a kid's toy in comparison to the Playmates. That said, it's the most bang for your buck figure at just $51. The NECA, it's not a bad figure at all. I would actually say that of the three, this is my personal favorite. Why? Because the nostalgia bias, the amount of adventures I've been on with this thing, and the fact that this figure will always forever hold a permanent place in my heart. That said, we're looking at 2025, not living in the past, even though we're taking a look at something from the past. The HIYA is definitely going to be the one to get of the three. Now, if you want something more kid-friendly, again, the Playmates one is not a bad option. You get a piece of battle damage, a tank, and a so-so figure. Not bad in the slightest. However, I think for the average adult collector, the one to go would be the HIYA. Now, how can I recommend the NECA over these two? Simple. Nostalgia from the past. This thing is a 2014 relic, an era of Godzilla that may never come back. And in my personal opinion, that's something to look forward to. But regardless of any one's preference. Regardless of my preference, your preference is the one that matters most. If you like a certain figure for whatever reason, maybe you like the Playmates more than these two for some reason, you maybe like the NECA over these two, maybe you prefer the HIYA over these two. It doesn't matter. Ultimately, the decision is yours. And that's the fun thing. You can get all three of them, just two of them, one of them, none of them. You don't have to get any of them for that matter. Maybe you hate Godzilla, which at that point, why are you even on this channel when primarily one of the big topics is Godzilla? Doesn't make sense. Get the hell off my channel. Anyways, that's all I have for this video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like and subscribe. We're going to be doing this a bit more often because I do want to get some more comparisons done and out of the way, just get more Godzilla content rolling in until I start getting some newer action figures, which who knows when that'll be. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. Peace out, everyone.